All right, so we learn how to create this account, right? We learn how to look up kind of what the chart looks for, and you're still thinking in your head, but I really don't get it yet, right? All I know is I need to figure out if I got $100 or $1,000, I got 10 grand, and I know I want to put it into crypto because it's money I can afford to lose or invest or gamble with or whatever you want to call it, right? And that's a whole other conversation we're gonna have. But you've got this money you want to invest. How do I know when the heck am I supposed to get in? How do I know when I'm not supposed to get in? So let me do two things. I'm going to show you, I've changed the chart up a little bit. I want to show you a couple things. You see over here in the top right, there's like this little book looking thing. And I talked about how you can have favorites over here. Just simply click that to get it out of your way. Okay. But then what I did is I went to indicators and I added two very famous, very popular indicators that I'm going to explain to you to give you a general idea of kind of what's happening in the market, right? So the MACD, the MACD, just click indicators and search MACD and bada bing, it'll pop right up. And that is the moving average with consolidation, with convergence and divergence, right? Which really means nothing to you. It's not going to matter. But it really will pop up somewhere on your screen. And just like up here, it has its own zooming thing, okay? So you can zoom in and out, and I'm going to tell you what that does in just a second. In fact, let me just make it a little bit bigger because we're going to talk about this other one too. And then there's the RSI. The RSI is the Relative Strength Index. Now, I've had it happen both ways. Sometimes I type in RSI. Sometimes I have to search Relative Strength Index. But currently my indicator that I have saved is called RSI. So you can kind of search either one. But really what we're looking for is they're both kind of based on momentum and trends and kind of what's happened in the past. And it gives you a little bit of a better understanding of kind of what's happening in the future, or at least right now, right? So let me start with the MACD, okay? The MACD is really a great tool to really figure out where I'm at in the marketplace. So if you're somebody who's saying, I have this money, I want to invest it, and I'm not going to be, taking profits or asking to get my money out for months, years even, right? It could be weeks, right? Whatever your time frame is, that's where we have to adjust this time frame here. So if you're saying I want to put it in here and I want to be able to, get a 10% return in the next week, okay, great. You probably can't trade or make that on a daily chart. You can't make that decision on a daily chart. You can on a smaller one. But let's say you're somebody who says, look, I'm in this kind of for the long haul. I've decided that I've researched enough about cryptocurrency that I have a good understanding of really what's happening from the standpoint of how the market works, why Bitcoin drives the prices of everything up and down, that whole thing. And I'm trying to figure out what to do. Well, I went to a weekly chart, and you can also go to a monthly chart, and it shows you kind of a better understanding of the trend, right? You see a little trend up here, trend up, and then a trend down, right? Check this out. Now we've got another trend up. Oh, look at that. There's another trend down. You got to remember, though, that it is not always, I saw this in the past, therefore that's what's going to happen. But what we see in the past, we absolutely can look at and be like, okay, I think I understand kind of maybe the direction that's going in. So specifically what I want to talk about now is the MACD and the RSI, so you can make a better decision. Because if you look at this, you're like, wait a minute, I probably shouldn't be getting in. I'm on the monthly chart, and it looks like month after month it's going down. Well, that is what it looks like. If I go to a weekly, it looks like it's maybe consolidating. When I go to the daily, it's like, well, it's kind of in a downtrend. It looks like it's really consolidating between 63 and 27, which is a really massive channel. But overall, it looks like it's going up, right? And then coming back down. Let's talk about MACD. What is the MACD? The MACD, you see the green wave and you see the red waves, the green and the red and the green and the red. And what does that look like to you folks? It literally looks like waves, right? And this is the cyclical nature of everything, right? There is momentum to absolutely everything in the universe, right? And so what's happening is this is kind of showing you in a visual form, taking into a couple of other indications what's happening with the momentum. The volume is a part of this. The price action is a part of this. The average from the past is a part of this. But in general, if we kind of scroll over here, remember we're on the daily chart. Let's not forget where we are. Let's just look at this kind of section right here. We just had this big sell-off, a lot of negative momentum, and then it started to turn around the wave. And now we've crossed into these green candles, and these green candles are kind of telling us, hey, look, there's a lot of positive momentum here. Hey, that's a good sign. The momentum is positive, and so that tells me that chances are in the short term it's going to continue to go up. But I said short term, and that's short term relative to whatever time frame I'm in. If I'm looking at a chart that's a 1 minute candle, I say that in the short term it looks like it's positive momentum. Well, that means in 5 minutes it could change, right? On a daily, it could mean in 5 days. On a weekly, it could be 5 weeks, right? 3 weeks, 10 weeks, right? You can have this momentum building for a long time. What's cool is that the way TradingView happens to set it up is it changes the color of the green when it loses momentum quickly. So we've got a lot of strong positive momentum here and then some coming off. Now that is only a visual indication of kind of where I'm going. I don't really use that to place a trade. What I do though use to trade is kind of these lines, this orange and this blue line. Now these are actual moving averages as well, but they tell me a little bit more information, right? It's still based on this price action up here, but it's a little bit different. Okay, this happens to be on, if you go over here and you click this gear, it'll tell you exactly what it is when you go to inputs. It's got a 12, a 26, and a 9. Now, what does that mean? Sometimes, and again, it just depends on which one you click on. Sometimes it'll actually tell you that this is a 9-day moving average, which is the price over the last 9 days. And keep in mind, if you're on a 1 hour chart, that means it's the average price over the last 9 hours, right? You got to remember, you're going to have to stick to a time frame when you're looking at the data. And then obviously 12 and 26. And what we're looking for is, since the blue line is this 9-day moving average, it's 9 days, so it moves a lot faster. And since the orange is a greater time period, what happens is it moves slower, right? And a 200-day would be really slow movement, right? And so what we're looking for is, like right now, if I was to look at Bitcoin and say, should I be getting in or should I be getting out? Well, we're down here at the bottom. And in general, a rule of thumb in investing is, hey, you buy it low, you sell it high. Well, we happen to be getting a lot of negative momentum that really drive the prices down. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a cross of the blue line to the orange line. And if I only look at that piece of data, I could enter a trade right here when it crosses. And typically, it's going to continue to go up until the blue crosses the orange, which you can kind of see up here. When the blue crosses the orange and really starts to come down, you're going to have a trend moving downward until it changes its mind. Now, what's really cool is, for those of you who have time on your hands, like some of my friends do, you can kind of look at just these two pieces of information and say, wait a minute, if all I did is looked at that information, would I have made money or lost money? Well, right here, if I would have, and let me grab a little arrow. Okay, if I was right here where it crossed, you could see the dotted line that goes up to that candle. Well, let's just assume I bought it right there, really at the last second of the day. Okay, I saw the cross happen. What ended up happening was this big sell-off. So I exited and took all my money back, and I'm sitting in cash right now. Okay, I'm not invested in Bitcoin at the moment, maybe. I'm assuming it's just a little bit of money, right? But you're going to exit your trade position, which is not everything you have, but you're going to exit that trade and you're going to let it go down in price. Why? Because now you can accumulate it or rebuy it when it's lower. And where did you get to buy it? Where did you get to enter back in? Oh, look, the blue crosses, and I'll say you bought it at the worst case scenario, which is going to be at the end of the day, and you bought it there. So what's going to end up happening now? Well, if it goes up, you can sell it up here. And look at that. You're going to make all that gain. And I can measure that by just simply clicking here and say, oh, cool, I made 60% on my money for simply holding it 20 bars, which would be 20 days because we're on the daily chart, right? Remember, all of these tools that I'm showing you, they're really designed to give you a better understanding of the time frame that you're in. You got to pay attention to that. So the cool part is, if this blue line comes back over and it crosses the orange again, because it's going to start to go down, the price will have gone up and then it will have come down again. So when it crosses, I'm going to exit out here, which means maybe I only made 1%, 2%, 5% instead of 60, but at least now I'm out of the trade as the price goes down. So this is just one way. And again, I know this is a very quick overview, but this is just one of the things that we look at to be able to show you what's going on. The other thing you can do is you can do pretty much the exact same thing up here. I'll make a whole nother video on how we're going to put moving averages up here to make those same decisions. But while we're talking about MACD and RSI, that at least gives you a little bit of an idea. And the other thing you could do, oh, it's not going to let me. Sorry, let me push this back up and let me shrink this. So the RSI is the relative strength index, meaning that it is kind of showing you this interesting range of price action and volume and a couple other things combined. And really what we're looking for is the dotted lines. The dotted line up here is typically set at 70, right? And the dotted line down here is typically set at 30. And what that means to us is, how are you supposed to know how many people are getting into or out of crypto at the moment? Like, how do I know that not everybody's deciding to sell right now? And how do I know that not everybody is trying to buy right now? Right? I want to kind of have a better understanding of what the whole market is doing. And I can't really tell by one candle, right? Again, consolidation is indecision. So I'm confused too, especially if you're newer. I'm definitely lost. I don't know what to do. And so this is one of the things we look at. We don't just look at one candle and say, oh, I'm going to make a decision. We look for an opportunity at the top. We look for a confirmation at the bottom. You know what a good confirmation would be? Oops. Would be this cross right there. I know it's tiny, but it crossed. Oh, that confirms that my decision up here is probably right. And then the other thing I look for is maybe on the RSI. Now the RSI, the two things you got to know, it's really, really simple, guys. The RSI, everything in this purple range right here in the middle, it's not super important, right? For your purposes right now, it's really not important. You could basically ignore it. But what I want to look at is, what if it goes below this dotted line? And you see this kind of action down here? This means it is oversold, meaning that it was selling. Everything is selling. And right here, the amount of selling that has happened in aggregate would be determined to be oversold, meaning that there's the sellers. We've pushed so hard on the selling side that really there's so many buyers waiting. We should start seeing a lot of price action going up. And look what happens. It starts going up. Same thing at the top. If I come back over here, when it gets this extended from this dotted line, it's overbought, meaning too many people are buying. Let me show you a really good example of this on a weekly chart. Okay. And let me make my MACD really, really small for a second. If I go to the weekly chart, you're going to go back to this last bull run right here. The bull run meaning that in 2017, when the price of Bitcoin went from $1,000 down here up to $20,000. Do you see how this really stayed during this entire time right here? Overbought, right? These are indicators for us of, wow, this is really continuing to grow. And so this is not the time to be entering the marketplace, right? But when you're brand new, you don't know that. You have what's called FOMO. You have the fear of missing out on this huge opportunity. And so you end up doing what Brian Lochner did. If you've heard my story before, not knowing any better, just really being a competitive guy with my college roommate and one of my best friends, he got in, he started making money. How hard could this Bitcoin thing be? I don't even know what I'm buying, but I'm in. And I bought it right here, right around $12,000. And I watched it. And I watched it go all the way up here. And I had no idea I was supposed to sell it. And then I watched it all come all the way down here. And then I watched it go up. And I'm like, it's at $15,000. This must be a discount. And so I bought more of it. Again, not knowing how to read a chart. This is why it's so important at a very basic level you understand this, right? And then it went all the way down here. And that's when I started, somewhere right in here is really when I started digging and being like, I don't think I'm getting this. I think something's wrong. And so the end of 2017, the beginning of 2018, I did a lot of homework to make sure this never happens again, because I didn't sell my positions because I believed in what, once I learned about it, I kind of believed, all right, it's going to be fine, but what could have been cooler had I exited up here, taken all this profit and then rebought down here, right? Now I'd have more of the Bitcoin. Or the asset that I was going to buy. So RSI is just simply another way to help us better understand the momentum aspect of it, right? And so for now, that's what you need to know about kind of some different indicators that really will help you kind of look at the market a little bit different. So when do I get in? When do I get out? Well, it depends on the time frame that you're looking at, right? If you're looking at a weekly chart and you're like, hey, maybe I should get into this for the next 10 years. Well, You got to know a lot more about the technology and the backstory to make that decision. And so most likely what's going to happen is, chances are, because it's 2021, we are in what is called a bull run year, which I have other videos on that topic you can go search for on the channel. But basically, I believe that the price of Bitcoin is going to go exceptionally higher specifically this year before it goes substantially lower in the next couple of years, right? And we'll repeat basically the same pattern we did in 2017, 2018, 2019. And so with that being said, I know that before the end of the year, or I'm sorry, I believe that before the end of the year, that the price is going to at least test where we were, which was that $60-something thousand line, right? So when I see something at $37,000, I'm like, okay, I can get in pretty much any time in the 30,000 range and I'll be fine. And how do I know that? I know that because of, one, my understanding of the market cycle, which again, go watch my other videos on that. But two, I've already tested this line. I've hit it once. What do I have to do again if I want to break out of it? Well, I've come back down, and I think before the end of the year, it's going to go up and hit this line again. Like, I personally believe that there's a really high likelihood we're going to touch this line by August. And what's even crazier than that is I think we're going to touch the $100,000 line by September 1st. Now, again, I could be wrong, and I'm sure you guys will hold me to that. But for right now, you could be seeing this 4 years in the future. The concept is still the same, right? If I understand the fundamentals of what crypto is and all that kind of stuff and how the market cycle works, it helps me better understand kind of how I'm making decisions. And right now, I can look at it on a daily chart and say, all right, I believe it's going to go up here. So buying really makes sense really anytime. But more importantly, I'm going to look at a couple other indicators. And what can I look at? I'm definitely going to look at my my MACD and see, all right, I've definitely had a cross. We've been pretty low. We haven't been this low in a long time. So it's definitely getting some real strong momentum now, and we're starting to push back closer to this midline. But then I'm going to go down here and say, look, we were really oversold down here, right? Look at all these sellers down here. Okay, really oversold, and now we're starting to go back through this purple period until we get up here, and we're going to be overbought. And so if you really, really, really need the most simplistic trading strategy in the world, you know, this is not foolproof by any means, but really you could just look at it and say, look, when it's up here, you want to be selling it. When it's down here, you really want to be buying it. Same thing. When it's up here, you want to be selling it. When it's down here, you want to be buying it. And that's an oversimplification of how it works, but I'm hoping that helps you better understand that when it's down here, it's a good time to buy. And when it's up here, it's oversold. Therefore, overbought is up here. And so people are going to start to sell it and take their profits, right? Because the nice thing about trading is there's always a smarter trader than you. And so you've got to do your best to lower your risk by taking the profits when you have an opportunity. And so we'll dive more into these topics as we move forward in the future, but I wanted to at least give you a little bit overview of kind of the things that we're looking at. We've got our chart. You include the volume if you want to. It's going to come in handy later on. You've got the MACD, which helps kind of as a confirmation for, should I be getting in right now? Should I not be getting in right now? You got the RSI, which is, again, an opportunity to say, oh yeah, this is pretty solid. And so if someone pulled me to the side and said, Brian, right now, should I be getting in or out? The first question I always ask them, and you need to ask yourself this too, is what's the plan? What's the goal, rather? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to double your money in the next 10 days? Because this is probably not what you should be doing, right? Are you trying to build your wealth over the next several years? Okay, if that's the case, let's say 10 years, you're trying to really build your wealth. Well, we just had this big sell-off, and now we're starting to gain momentum, right? I'm looking at these candles up here, and when I show you the moving averages in the next video and teach you about the moving averages and how we use that to make decisions, it'll make more sense. But once I make a decision up here, I want someone else to tell me, or something else to tell me I'm right. I'm going to look for this cross. That's great. I'm going to look to see that we're getting away from this black area. We're going back into the purple area if we can. That's what I'm looking for to say, yep, this is a confirmation we're going up. This is a confirmation we're going up. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Let's give it a shot, okay? And then as we go forward, we'll talk about how do we place a trade? How do we put what's called a stop loss in there so that if I go to sleep in the middle of the night and Bitcoin starts to fall, how do I have a level already set to go ahead and pull me out of the trade so that I don't wake up in the morning on one of these giant red candle days being like, oh my gosh, what did I do, right? So hopefully you learned something. We'll see you guys on the other side.